Ryan
Is it time?
Yeah.
Yay!
Right then, right. I'll get my guitar then. There we go.
Challenge.
I'm looking forward to this. No,
Ah,
not today.
Right,
Oh dear.
just so if you don't know, he's also an excellent harmonica player. An excellent.
That's very kind. Bless you, darling. Right, I'll get myself settled. Here we go. That's about as complicated as I can manage, is that? It looks complicated, it just moves the words forward when I get to it. It's not like reverb or anything fancy.
So you can't play Mario now.
Oh no. So before I get started, I will just set the scene a little bit for those of you that aren't familiar with my little journey and why I'm where I'm at. Basically, I've got 5 songs, and they go through a bit of a journey, and I'll give a brief explanation, which is the luxury of doing a little event like this, as to where they've come from and why I've written them. But just to set the scene, basically, other than last week, which I helped somebody else do a little performance, this is kind of my first gig since January of this year. And the reason why is because I've had several incidents of bad health, which I'll briefly recount now, just so that you understand the situation that I'm in now and why, even just after talking after a small amount of time, I sound like I'm out of breath. I'm not, but there is a reason for that. So, in January, I made a decision, which was to try and fix myself to a point where I could enjoy myself again, properly. Not the version of myself I'd painted in my head that used to think he enjoyed himself. That person doesn't exist anymore. I'm very, very proud to say. And the reason I'm proud to say is this. I decided that I used to have really decayed teeth. And the reason for that was because 5 years ago, I was diagnosed with something called Crohn's disease. And Crohn's disease affects every single person who gets it in a slightly different way. For me, it made me really tired, but it also gave me a skin condition in a certain part of my body, which meant it stopped me being able to walk for 6 months. So that was the start of the journey, and my health just declined from getting that, where I sort of couldn't work anymore, and I ended up throwing myself into this little thing and into lyrics writing in particular. Then, when I was in the worst of the Crohn's, the pain from not being able to walk, I could literally I couldn't take a full stride because my skin had a problem and it would split, so I couldn't sort of get to my front door even. So I was in that much pain that I started smoking a horrendous amount of cannabis, and that was to purely cope with the amount of pain I was in. However, what they don't tell you on the packet is that cannabis is really bad for you. Nobody really knows how bad, but I know, because I used to be 10 stone and 6'2". I'm considerably more than 10 stone now, I'm quite proud to say, because I used to look really, really ill. And it's because I was and I didn't know it. What happened was, I went to bed one night 3.5 years ago, and my lung collapsed in my sleep. I woke up and thought, it felt like someone was sat on my chest, and I thought, this isn't good. And 2 weeks later, I finally stopped smoking enough to go and see a doctor, and they sent me to the hospital, and it turns out there was a litre and 1.8 litres of air outside of my lung but in my shoulder. So they punctured my chest, let all the air out, and then said, right, get on your way. I still carried on smoking, thinking I was invincible. And then the following summer, I had it happen again. And I realised that they weren't going to just let the air out this time. They glued my left lung to my chest wall. And during that operation, it's supposed to, they put like a talcum powder inside your chest. And basically it's supposed to fuse your lung to your chest so that it can't physically collapse. But after they did that operation, it collapsed and failed, and my body went into shock, and I nearly passed away. And my current girlfriend of 8 months today, actually, but she's in bloody Ireland, was sat next to my hospital bed, as was my sister, and they both ran off and got a surgeon. This was in St James's in Leeds, and they managed to save my life just because they were fast enough to get a surgeon. So they put a drain into my chest, reinflated my lung, had to do the operation all over again, which I got to tell you, it was the most painful thing I've ever been through. The anaesthetist said it's the closest thing to the pain of childbirth that there is. And what it feels like is basically my breath. If you take a normal standard breath and you go like that, it feels a bit like a meter stick. You can sort of imagine it's a bit like a meter stick. Well, I could breathe about 5 millimeters. And when I was breathing, it felt like I was inflating my lungs onto sharpened knives. It was the most horrendous pain I've ever been in. I've never been close to feeling that sort of pain ever since. So, all of that transpired and I got better and woke up the following day after the second bit of the operation, and it did stick. The left lung is now 95% likely never to collapse again. And that was 3.5 years ago, and I've never smoked ever since, which I'm very proud of. Thank you. And I realised, because of all the steroids that I'd taken for the Crohn's and all that kind of stuff, that's what had made my teeth crumble, because I had soft teeth anyway. But I was trying to do little gigs, deliberately using the microphone and sort of hiding my mouth, because I was the lack of self-esteem from like just sort of trying to hide. But that fire in my belly just going, this is who I am. I'm a guy that plays music and writes songs and plays harmonica. I'm a performer. I love entertaining people. But the songwriting side of things is the bit that's the extension of my arms. It's the bit that makes me want to carry on breathing. And when you're sat or laying in a hospital bed knowing that you've just nearly passed away, the things that pop into your head then are a bit dark, I'll admit, but the hope for getting back to being able to sit in front of a room of people, kind people, hopefully, and being able to sing your own songs. Exactly. It's it's nothing to be taken for granted. It's one of the most precious things we can do is to share ourselves with other people. So normally, this part of the gig never gets said. I just hope that the song is enough to paint the full picture, but it can't be, because the songs are only 3 or 5 minutes long. They're not half an hour long, which is what I'd need them to be to say the whole message. So, as things currently stand, I'm about as good as I can get. I'll never be fully healthy again, because what happened was I've got active lung disease. It never heals. It's like if you have your leg amputated, it don't grow back. That's what the lung disease is like. So in my right lung, I'm not allowed to go flying ever again. So my life's completely changed, because the change in air pressure would literally collapse my lung. And because this one's been operated on, me surviving the same operation on this one is less than 50%. So if I have a big jog, well, do well to have a big jog. If I had a big dog jump up at me, my right lung might collapse. If I go out when it's raining and slip, the impact might make my right lung collapse, because this is 80% likely to collapse. So every single day I go to bed, don't actually know that I'm going to wake up. So what that means is I've got to have a real lot of mental strength and power, basically to go, get it bin. Because there's no point. There's no point sitting here going, I'm really scared. I am, but the second you put into that position, you can't be. You've got to be cheerful, you've got to be positive, and you've got to go, well, I'll decide, because you do have a choice about how you cope with things. I'll decide to look forward to tomorrow instead of looking backwards. So that's what I'm going to do. Thank you. So I'm going to play some songs, but now when I explain what they're about, they'll be in context now and you'll understand where they come from. So this first song, it's a song called 30 Something, so you'll guess that I was a little bit younger, just a bit, when I wrote this. I'm 42 now, but I was about 38, 39 when I wrote this. And that's when I'd just been diagnosed with Crohn's, and I'd sort of had, I was in the middle of the 6 months, and I basically wrote this song to myself. So this song is a message to my own body. And it's basically a song about hoping to be a dad one day. It's my biggest dream. I really desperately want to be a dad. And so the whole song is basically, can you please not give up or break long enough for me to be a dad? Thanks. That'd be grand. So that's what this song's about. It's basically about my body just holding out long enough for me to be a dad one day. That'd be really nice. So it's called 30 Something, and it goes a bit like this. This is also the first proper time I'm singing with my new dentures in, so forgive me if there's any mistakes. Here goes. I think my back is playing up again. I've got the front to bring it down, but then somebody might know, somebody might go, oh, oh, oh. I think I've landed on my crow's feet. My dancing lasts before I hit the beat. Somebody might fall, somebody might call, oh, 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 oh. I feel my body going under, all the hopefulness I like to keep in place. I know my mind is gonna sunder, devoid of normal elegance and grace. But I'm asking of it one more time. Can you wait until the end of the line? There's just one thing I've got to do. Let's try to be a daddy with you. I'm taking out more than I put back in. It hurts to eat without my ritalin. Somebody might fear, somebody might hear, oh, 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 oh. I'm taking longer just to heal a bruise, and even longer still to feel amused. Somebody might feel, somebody like me, oh, oh, oh. I feel my body going under, all the hopefulness I like to keep in place. I know my mind is gonna sunder, I'm devoid of normal elegance and grace. But I'm asking of it one more time. Can you wait until the end of the line? There's just one thing I've gotta do. Let's try to be a daddy with you. And I feel 30 something, looking out on a perfect morning. And the ones that take my mind are the ones of a changing kind. When my blood's in my head and my heart's in the know, I'll be ready for another go. I feel my body going under, all the hopefulness I like to keep in place. I know my mind is gonna sunder, I'm devoid of normal elegance and grace. But I'm asking of it one more time. Can you wait until the end of the line? There's just one thing I've gotta do. Let's try to be a daddy with you. I think it's getting past my bedtime. I've got to put the blanket up to 5. Somebody might feel, somebody like me, oh, 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 oh. Awesome, thank you. Woo. Right, quick slurp of coffee to keep the juices going. So now you'll understand much better about this next song. This was the first song I wrote after coming out of the hospital with my lung operation, and was a very, very, very hard one to write and an emotional one to write, and probably more emotional to sing than I'm aware of, because I've never played this one out loud to an audience before. So it's called Catch My Breath, and it's a tricky one, but it's one that kind of describes some of the journey that I've explained a bit earlier. So I'm just going to go for it. Okay, so this is Catch My Breath. a strange kind of feeling when the air that I'm breathing is a pain in my side. Waking up let me down again, but I can't let a complication arise. Take my hand, I'm falling to my knees and I need a friend. Oh, I hate to ask, I'm bursting at the seams with a whisper I confess. Can I just catch my breath? There's a flaw in my thinking. Everything I'm addicted to is clouding my mind. Lighting up brought me down somewhere, and I can't put my finger on the passing of time. Take my hand, I'm falling to my knees and I need a friend. Oh, hate to ask, I'm bursting at the seams with a whisper I confess. Can I just catch my breath? When I'm fearful of sleeping and I treat every dream I have as if it's my last, waking up with the photographs, I can change all the negatives I had in the past. Take my hand, I'm falling to my knees and I need a friend. Oh, hate to ask, I'm bursting at the seams with a whisper I confess. Can I just catch my breath? Take my hand, I'm falling to my knees and I need a friend. Oh, hate to ask, I'm bursting at the seams with a whisper I confess. Can I just catch my breath? Oh, oh. Falling to my knees and I need a friend. Oh, hate to ask, I'm bursting at the seams with a whisper I confess. Can I just catch my breath? Oh, catch my breath. Oh. There you go, thank you. Whew. Thank you, thumb. Gets the cobwebs out, just that one. So once I got to the point of needing to have 8 teeth taken out and several really major fillings and things like that, I got to a point where they were going to send me in for an operation. And my lung got a problem just before the date of the operation and said, no mate, it's not happening. Not having an operation. So I had to go back to my amazing dentist and say, can you take them out for me please, because I trust you? And she went, yeah, all right. But that was going to take a good 8 months. So I started in March and I got my teeth all finished and sorted just in time for my birthday, which was really, really nice. But it did take a lot of time and effort. And every time she went in to sort one of my teeth out, she knew my anxiety might make my lung go and all the rest of it. So she was such a patient, lovely person. Never hurt me once, by the way. But because she did that for me, I decided that she needed a thank you because she's kind of changed my life a little bit. So I wrote a song, and it's called Laughing Out Loud. And it's a thank you song to my dentist, Miss Zoe Connolly, at St Michael's Dental Practice on Wakefield Road, next to the cricket ground. Honestly, they are absolutely amazing people. So I did 3 CDs, one for her and one each for her 2 assistants, who were absolutely brilliant, kept me really, really relaxed. And I went in with 3 little sort of silver bags with all the little names on, little bottle of Prosecco in there, and a little CD printed out for them, just to say thank you. They don't know that it's been on the radio, and they've had a shout out on the proper like airwaves and stuff. So when I go back in January for a little checkup, I'm going to whip out my phone and go, there you go, listen to that. You're on radio. So that'll freak them out, I'm sure. So yeah. So this is called Laughing Out Loud. Now this did have a sister song. And it's important to mention it because the sister song's called Smiling Underneath, and that's because the previous dentist I had was a wanker. Not to put too fine a point on it. And he made me lose hope. He looked in my mouth. I told him basically a similar version as to what I've explained to you. And he looked in my mouth and he said, "Oh, Ryan, your mouth's a disaster area." Oh, thanks, mate. Cheers for that. Great to build up my confidence and everything. And so I never went back and saw him again. But I'd been crying in the dentist chair for half an hour. So I wrote him a song as well. Not quite as... Yeah, not quite as positive.
That to him as well.
Not yet, no. No, not yet. I was at least...
The Prosecco.
Exactly, right. But what I did do was make a music video about it. And I made 2... sock puppets with fake teeth in, the biggest fake teeth you could ever get. So you can see that online. And it's called Smiling Underneath. And I'd been telling my new amazing dentist about this. And so the cover of the CD has the same 2 sock puppets on. They're called Sebastian and Reg, for those people who need to know. And so, yeah, so I made a music video. So that's called Smiling Underneath. If you Google Ryan Mitchell Smith, double-barrelled name, but I'm not posh, and just look under YouTube, you'll see Smiling Underneath. And that's the sister song to this. This is called Laughing Out Loud. Passing broken mirrors and trying not to flinch. Scarred with bad decisions and yellow fingertips. A blackened smile used to haunt my self-esteem. I spent a while in a haze of smoky dreams. Time to wake up, never or now. Trusting hope can weather the rain of many storms. Find the strength to gather momentum through the doors. Beside myself are the shadows of my past. Decide to hell with the glances that they cast. Bite the bullets, line every cloud. No, it doesn't hurt. It could be much worse. So I'm laughing out loud. Look back, chose a different path, and I'm laughing out loud. says it will be alright, then I know in the end it will be just fine. So I open wide and I hold my breath, and the light closes in and I'm scared to death. But I'll go through the motions, I won't fall apart, cause I trust you with every inch of my heart. So I close my eyes, but I cannot believe it's not nearly as bad as I thought it would be. And I hope you see, but I'm really not sure. But well, thanks to you I'm not scared anymore. I'm on the way home and I feel a bit proud, cause I'm smiling underneath and I'm laughing out loud. No, it doesn't hurt, it could be much worse. So I'm laughing out loud. No, I won't look back, shows a different path. And I'm laughing out loud. No, it doesn't hurt, it could be much worse. So I'm laughing out loud. No, I won't look back, shows a different path. And I'm laughing out loud. Got my smile back, I can't thank you ever enough. Round about it, I think it's a good way to be able to cope with things. But this song came out of sort of a really weird time where the Crohn's was still active and the lung disease had been a thing, and I realised that basically I wasn't paying homage to how much stress that was on my mental health. And for a long time I didn't put my hand up and go, I'm struggling with my mental health, because it's a really difficult thing to do, and thankfully I think it's getting easier, which is really, really good. But you don't get anywhere if you don't put your hand up and let it be known to people. So I wrote this song about basically trying to find different ways of dealing with my mental health. Now, for me, and I know this is probably different for everybody in the different ways that you cope with it, but I know that this will be one of the ways that you assist your own mental health, and that is just to do something simple like going out for a walk. This song's called Just Get Out and Walk, and it's just about, no matter how bad things can get, just even getting past the front door actually is actually an achievement in itself and should never ever be underestimated. So I kind of wanted to write a song about it and sort of try and take ownership of my own mental health by doing so. So I'm going to do a version of it if I can. Okay. But I try and do it at a walking pace. So I'm going to hopefully record this one day and then get it on my earphones so I can go out and have a walk whilst listening to it, because I love the irony. Standing on the edge, shouting in my head, but I don't know what to say. Hold that thought, it's black against the wall. I'm losing self-esteem, living in a dream, but it's dark when I awake, when I can't find the way back. Take a ride off the wrong track, just get out and walk. just get out and walk. If I run but my feet fall, take a breath till I feel tall. Just get out and walk. Just get out and walk. On my knees, it's harder than it seems. It's time to heed the word of the little bird at the bright side of the day. And no one knows how the song should go. I'm picking at the strings and unraveling till the chatter falls away. When I can't find my way back, nothing left in the fuel tank. Just get out and walk. Just get out and walk. If I leave by the entrance, take a note of the distance. Just get out and walk. Just get out and walk. Struggle with the middle ground, so it's just a little step for now. Across the boundaries, see what life can be. I don't have to know the way, but I'll do my best to recognize all the worries and the warning signs. I'm weathering the start, raining from the heart. I just hope my head obeys. When I can't find the way back, head on straight up the footpath. Just get out and walk. Just get out and walk. If I get through the front door, half the journey is over. Just get out and walk. Just get out and walk. Thank you very much. So, I think I've got one more song left for you. And it's a slightly more cheerful one, is this one. It doesn't sound cheerful, though. I've got to be honest, it doesn't sound cheerful, but it is more cheerful. The reason it's more cheerful is because it's hopeful. And it's a song about when you've been without a partner for a long time, and I was until 8 months ago today. And not that it's a thing or anything. She's my best friend, so you know it's all good. But no, it's a really nice thing because I was starting to lose hope. I was starting to wonder, I'm not ever going to meet the right person. And actually, I started realising I'm not sure if I'm ready to meet the right person, and I'm not sure I've got the confidence to even introduce myself to a new person. So what am I going to do? So this song materialised, and I used a bit of a metaphorical aspect to this. The song's called The Pilot. Yes. Hey, got a fan. And it's a song about going for it anyway, even when you haven't got the confidence to. Basically, sort of trying to plaster on a bit of a fake smile because that can get you to walk through the door that you're scared of. But the metaphor of it is, it's coming from the point of view of a pilot of an aeroplane who's never really driven the aeroplane before. So actually, it's quite a nervy thing. But this is a slightly different way of playing the guitar. I love playing chords and all that kind of thing, but I'm a big fan of a player called John Gom and how he sort of does lots of tappy stuff on his guitar. So I sort of wanted to write something a bit different and sort of try and mimic the sort of the beating of the heart when you get nervous around someone you really like and all that kind of thing. But it is a hopeful song, and it's about basically gritting your teeth and kind of hoping that even if you're scared, you still might meet that person anyway, and it's about being brave enough to give it a go and give it a chance to succeed. So I thought I'd end on this one, and this is called The Pilot. Flying down the runway, trying not to suffocate. Breathing while my head is on the ground. My feet are somewhere soaring in the clouds. I'm not that different. Better check the instruments. Beating while my heart is in my mouth. My soul is searching somewhere further down. Navigate the misplaced. Is anybody listening? Lighting up the belt sign, I'm trying not to waste my time. Bracing for a second pass around, a single feeling far too often found. I'm not that obvious, stealthily oblivious, waiting for the impact of the cold, adding to the venture of my soul, maneuvering evasive. Is anybody listening? Is this the pilot? Is this the test run? Is this the check sound? Or just another barrier? Is this the run through? Is this the flight plan? Is this the right way round? Or just a little scarier? Radio the silence. Is anybody listening? Coming into land here, and crashing down to earth I fear. Breaking an emergency stop, surviving all the victims we have got. Am I just stalling? Examine Morse coding, listening to the letters of the law. A message in a bottle on the floor. I'm calling for assistance. Is anybody listening? Am I ready to live my life? Am I ready to take my time? Am I ready to be in love? Am I ready to be the man I dreamed of? Oh, oh, oh. Oh, oh, oh. Is this the pilot? Is this the test run? Is this the check sound? Or just another barrier? Is this the run through? Is this the flight plan? Is this the right way round? Or just a little scarier? Or radio the silence? Is anybody listening? Anybody listening? Is anybody listening? Thank you very much. So that's all from me. Thanks very much for having me, and thank you. It's been a pleasure.